Welcome to the virtual staff room on what is our Techy Tuesday, which is the updates for January 2022 that came in last month, just so that make sure that you're fully up to speed and you're aware what's happened. There are one or two items in here which are actually end user items, but it's just for you to be aware that those things are going to happen. There are other end user items that we covered, which will be in the updates from yesterday, which are now on our YouTube channel. And I'll share the YouTube channel with you at the end if you want to go and catch up on the January 2022 end user updates. But today is this admin panel updates. So we're going to jump straight in. Okay, this was in yesterday as well, and it's here as much because it alerts us to the fact that this is on its way. You can actually export data from your gradebook in a Google Classroom into what we call management information systems. They call them student information systems in America, but it's the same thing in effect. They're working through the most common ones in America, which is a common pattern for Google first, but they will start now to appear in ones that we use here in the UK, hopefully sometime this year, but just to be aware that that is coming soon. And I think it's just one of those things that will just cut out kind of an administrative burden for your staff, won't it? Allow them to do things that little bit quicker. It is currently, as you can see from the little GIF, a manual process. You hope that it might get to an automatic process eventually, but for the moment, it's going to be a manual process. But that's progress when it eventually arrives for the management information systems that we use. So that's the first thing. You've got to keep your eye out for that. This again is end user thing, but I don't think there's any settings for you in the admin panel. It is based on the enterprise licenses, so teaching and learning upgrade or education plus it applies to. But you set, when you go into your settings in a Meet now, you can set the sort of source language, and this one is set as English. And then below that, there's another option if you have a license attached to your account that says, well, do you want it in English or do you want it closed captions translated into one of these 4 languages? So these are the only 4 that are available currently. More will arrive, of course. This is always the way. They start with just a few to fully test it, and then they will add some more later. And someone was telling, it's Marcus, who's on the call, was saying that it's Brazilian Portuguese rather than Portuguese. But it's more will appear hopefully soon, so that list of available languages will increase. And actually it was pretty accurate from what Marcus told us yesterday, about 80+% accurate, which is probably enough to get a feel for it, isn't it? So still work to do, but it's pretty amazing that it does it in real time. So that's fantastic. So that's the live captions. For those of you who use Google Meet hardware in video conference rooms and all those kinds of things, they got a much more improvements to the troubleshooting page for all the Meet hardware that you've got, and you can see the 4 bullet points there. That what it gives you, allows you to filter down to individual devices, give you aggregate issues about counts of things, and so it just gives you a bit more kind of information that you can drill down into to start to make some analysis about the effectiveness of the devices that you've got. That's the Google Meet hardware devices. It's not Google Meet, it's the Google Meet hardware, if that's what you use in your video conference rooms. This one we tested out a couple of weeks ago, I think. This is a great new addition. I mean, it's talking here about its integration into the Nest Hub devices, which actually I'm not sure I've ever seen in schools, but actually it works in a standard Meet. So if you suddenly find yourself in a situation where you need to go remote again, or you're doing a hybrid where you've got some students in and you've got some students remote, and you need to run multiple devices, then you can do that. And those little shortcuts allow you to do that nice and easily. Lost my slide deck. Literally you go g.co companion, and actually if you look at the image you've caught, that's what the page looks like. And you can see on the right, it shows you the calendar appointments that your account has got coming up. So you go to one of those key Google shortcut sites and just click on the Meet you want to join, and it joins you in companion mode, already presenting. And it prompts you to say, what do you want to present, whether you want to present a tab or a whole screen or whatever. But they're really, really handy. If you need to see the students in the Meet and look at the screen, you then can run a second device with your presentation or your demonstration on it, which is really, really useful, I think. So that's a great little tool. And the other thing to say is it automatically sorts all the audio out, so you don't get feedback from the second device, which is really very clever. So that's companion mode, but like I say, it works in the standard Google Meet as well as on the Google Meet hardware now. So I'm hoping James is on the call here in case we get any questions about this at the end. Again, I'm not absolutely certain this is necessarily one that schools might use, but the Google Cloudsearch stats allows you to keep track of billable usage. So any documentation that people go to that is a billable, access thing, it allows you to keep track of that, so you can actually start to think about how you might charge, I presume. So precisely how the details of that will work, I don't know, but whether that's something that you would do in schools and colleges, I'm not sure either. It tends to be the registration and the money's all sorted in a slightly different way, isn't it, than by usage. But that is available, and that would be within your developer console for you to manage that. Google Cloud Search itself as a tool, of course, is Education Plus only. A brilliant tool, and it could just be that it's because I'm an old man and I'm having senior moments, but when I think, well, Ian sent me that document and it was about this, and Cloud Search has never yet let me down. It's an amazing way to search through all of your account, so all your Drive, calendar, groups, mail, to find the things based on the search criteria that you set. So it's a really handy little tool to see. If you've never seen that, I'm happy to demonstrate that once I've gone through the updates. If you're not currently on Education Plus, I think that's a great additional tool. So gives you some extra controls through the APIs there. Google Voice is Google's voice over the internet protocol phone system, and we use it here. It's really great, actually really convenient, and means I don't need to keep picking up my mobile to phone. I can phone straight through my Chromebook to all the various people I need to phone, which is fantastic. And it's just a list of more devices that it's building in. So there's now some more devices that you can use as the end phone at the college or school where you're at. So you can have it on a Chromebook, you can have it on a mobile, but you can also have it to a physical handset on a desk as well. Google Voice also allows you to move your number from office to office. You just type into the next handset and your number gets moved to that one, so it phones you direct, which is really clever. So, but there's just more devices that you can use on the list of available physical devices. This, I think, is another interesting one. Quite a number of our customers, I would say, use AD or Azure to sync their Google stuff. And in the past, they've used Google Cloud Directory Sync, which is a locally installed tool, which you then sync with whatever your source is into Google. And Google have now built a fully cloud-based version of that, which is called Directory Sync, and that's currently in beta. I should say, for those of you who haven't been to an update before, we'll share the slide deck afterwards, and the title is a link to the support pages about these particular things. So if you wanted to go and have a go at this and register for the beta, you could literally just click on that link and it will take you to the support pages where the link to the form to register for the beta is there for you to do. But that just seems like another reason to remove the need for that server that's currently running Google Cloud Directory Sync, if the syncing tool can now work fully cloud-based. So it just kind of reduces that cost and burden of running servers for these kinds of services within your organization, which I think is a great step. This one is about Google Drive labels. I think, I said this yesterday, I think this has got amazing legs. It's got the potential to be really, really useful additional tool for your security of your systems. In essence, you can turn it on, say, right, we're going to use the labels. You can apply up to 5 labels per document. You can force users to apply the labels. So you can say, I need you to categorize this document. And if the document has got, financial information in it or personally identifiable information in it, those could be categories that you could assign. And once the labels are assigned, you can then write data protection loss rules to say, if this label is applied, prevent it to be downloaded or prevent it from being printed, or do not allow it to be shared outside the organization. So it's just an additional level of security within the data loss protection rules that allow you to be even more sophisticated with it. And I just think it's a really clever additional tool. One, it helps with categorization of documents within your organization, which means that becomes that whole process of considering its purpose and its kind of security level, if you like, is a good thing. But also to be able to set the rules to control how that document then behaves based on the labels that it's got attached is also very powerful. I think there's a big implication in terms of training within the organization. But if I think once you've experienced a data breach and the processes that involves, I think this becomes a very attractive tool. I think sometimes if you haven't experienced that firsthand, people don't quite get why these things are important. But actually, I think once you have, you would understand that. I think it's definitely worth looking at. And you can also set these rules by sub-organization, so you could trial it with a small group of people first, just to see the implications of what it means before you actually go and do it full blown for the entire organization. And that's it, nice and short one today for the admin updates. Don't forget, as I said, the other updates from yesterday are available on our C-Learning YouTube channel rather. And I'm putting the link to that in the chat now. And I'll so that will take you to the C-Learning YouTube account. Please do subscribe to our C-Learning YouTube channel, and it helps us. We're trying to get ourselves to a number. We get loads of visitors to lots of the things that we post, which is great, but not many people are subscribing, and we can't customize our channel address unless we've got 100 subscribers. And until we can customize it, it reduces the number of people that find it when they search. So you would really help us, even if you've never visited again, if you were to subscribe. So please do subscribe. So let's have a look at these questions then. Let's go from the top. Just general things. Okay, so question for not subscribing to any of the paid versions of Google Workspace for Education. Oh, well, that's a question to everyone else. Please share which version they are using. So let us know which version you're using. Ian's keen to know that. So Karen's got fundamentals on some teaching and learning. And then Dave asked a question to Dave about fundamentals and secondary using Education Plus, whether they're all in the same domain or different domains. So a bit of both from Dave. I don't know why I'm reading this out. You're perfectly capable of reading this yourself.
Yeah, I think the reason for the question, Paul, is and thanks for sharing the update, is that of course some of these features only apply to some of the paid editions, and some of them obviously apply to all of the editions. And I just wondered whether there was a now, because we've got sort of 40 minutes left in this particular session, whether there's an opportunity for people to share their experiences of why they have either all paid editions or a mixed blend, and some obviously have Education Plus, but some only have teaching and learning, and how people are finding sort of the different options sort of working. So that was the reason for the question. Okay, excellent, thank you. Yeah, I mean it's with the actual slide deck. Chris will share the slide deck out with people afterwards. I always flag if it's on particular license types, so you know whether it applies to you or not. You'll see there's a couple there that were licensed things, so that's quite important to know. So any questions or any thoughts about any of the things that we've had there? Karen would like to see Cloudsearch. Oh right, okay, yeah, I can do that. Shall I do that first? That would be good. Yeah. And then perhaps Chris, you could just come in and share for those people who haven't sort of got it or need an update, how the different bands are charged for.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, no problem at all. Paul, do you want to run through the Cloudsearch first of all, as you've got it on screen, yeah, and then I'll chip in afterwards with the the various options of the paid versions and what they cover. Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent, good. So you probably saw me typing them whilst we were talking, and I've gone to my Cloudsearch, cloudsearch.google.com. So if you're wondering if you've got an Enterprise Education Plus license, you could always go and see if you've got that. It's also in the waffle button over here. There's the icon, little cloud with a magnifying glass in it. Chris and I do a lot of work together on Soundtrap, digital audio workstation, fully web-based. So I've just done a search for Chris and Soundtrap, and the first tab, I've got 6 tabs across here, you can see, finds absolutely everything that we've ever done: documents, emails, calendar items, etc., etc. But I can actually use one of the other tabs just to filter to specific things if I chose to. There's nothing in sites, there's no groups, I don't think, any calendar items, so it allows you to filter out. But if I go to Drive, for example, I can actually then say, well, I just want to look at the price calculator, so I'll filter down to spreadsheets. So it just keeps filtering and filtering until you find the thing that you want. And as I said earlier, if you I think schools almost more than any seem to be juggling all sorts of things, conversations with external agencies, external projects, as well as all the parent things and conversations with other people, collaborating with your other members of the team within your department, within the wider context of your institution. So there's all sorts of threads of different things that come bombarding you in your account. So to be able to go to somewhere to search and filter out and find things is a really useful thing to do. And each of these tabs, as well as you can see, I've filtered by spreadsheet. You can also filter by time. So you've got a number of ready-made time ones. And you can actually specify whether the document needs to be owned by me or find me everything. So you've got filters for each of the subcategories, as well as the function to put in search terms to find things. And it's, like I say, it's never yet let me down. The other important thing to remember about it, this is not a cloud search on our domain. It's a cloud search on my account. So it's Google search, all the power that brings, just searching on my account. So and the reason I say that is because it doesn't break any sharing permissions. So if Chris happened to have a spreadsheet that's got Soundtrap in there, theoretically you think it would find it, but unless it was shared with me in some way, or it'd been an email to me, then it would not appear in the list. So it doesn't break any sharing permissions at all. And that's crucial. I think when we first demonstrated it, I forgot to say that. I think people were worried that it was doing a search of the world and finding every single Soundtrap thing that's got Chris Van Halen's name next to it. It wasn't doing that. It's all contained within my account and doesn't break any sharing permissions. So we'll only show me those things that I've already got rights to see. So that for me is an enormously powerful tool. It allows me to focus down on the things that I need to find and get back to working again quickly and efficiently. And it's a tool that comes in the Education Plus license only. So that's, I'll stop presenting now. I missed the button. And then pass over to Chris, who's just going to say a little bit about the different licenses.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Okay, so basically, you've got the 3 different paid options: Education Standard, which covers off the advanced security features; Education Plus, which covers off the advanced security features and the teaching and learning upgrades. Now, both of these options are based on your enrolled students within your organization. So that would be full-time or part-time. With the standard, you'd be looking at £2 or €2.20 if you happen to be working out of the EU there. With the Education Plus, you're looking at £3.20 per student per year, or €3.40. The teaching and learning upgrade is slightly different in that you can assign as many of those licenses as you wish. So minimum entry level is 1. You can actually purchase those on a monthly basis, £2.20, 5, but we'd usually recommend an annual subscription at £27 just to keep things nice and simple. Karen's asked there about Dave. He's got some of his secondaries excluding one on Education Plus, but primaries on fundamentals. Dave, you might want to come in here on this, but my understanding on that is if you've got, let's say, a multi-academy trust, but each of those schools on the multi-academy trust have got their own separate domain name, then you can just pick some of those schools and upgrade those to Education Plus and leave the others on fundamentals if you wish. Is that the setup you've got, Dave, with your multi-academy trust there?
Yeah, so each of our schools has got a secondary domain. We have a primary domain, which is a trust domain, but each school has got a secondary domain, which is where our users reside.
Yeah.
So with the licensing for the two, well, we have two secondary schools. One of them is standalone anyway. So that sits within its own primary Google domain, which is really confusing because we've got a primary Google domain for secondary and then secondary Google domains for our primaries. But so that Matthew Mass sits on its own Google domain as a primary domain, and that just gets licensed as is. The other high school gets sits on its own secondary domain under the trust domain, and we license that one for Education Plus. Yeah, although I don't know if it makes any difference. We're an Education Plus Legacy Edition because we subscribed when it was still called Giuseppe.
Yeah.
G Suite.
I don't think that makes
education.
I don't think it matters, though, does it?
It won't make a difference. No, it's the
we
same.
don't register. We don't apply the licenses to our other secondary domains, which are our primary schools. Really confusing, the use of secondary and primary in both of those contexts, but that's how we've got it set up.
Just with you, Karen, then, with your setup there within TCAT, is that a similar setup that you've got there, or does it work slightly differently with your?
No, we've got everything on primary domain.
Right. Okay.
I don't know why, whether it's just that's what somebody thought we needed to do, or whether there's a specific reason we've got that. So, question for me to go away with.
Okay.
But we've got a number of schools that would like some of it, but not every school. And obviously, for the 45, it's about 75 grand, which isn't something that our IT budget can cover.
Yeah, I know we've sort of spoken about that in the past, haven't we? And I know you've got a number of teaching and learning upgrades, and they continue to grow. I think you were asking about another one the other day.
Yeah, and even more now that they've turned off the record function.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is tricky when UK isn't quite out of remote learning yet.
No, absolutely. And it's a useful function to have as well. I always think that, you've got the ability to live stream and whatnot. So it's not a thing to, I think you need at least some, you need the ability to have those in there. But yeah, whether it's something we can look at for you, possibly in conversation with Dave, if there's an idea we could possibly, if you have got some schools that are interested in that, if there's a way we could maybe change the setup of the domain. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Just kind of.
Yeah, I'll have a chat with Chris and see. If there's a particular reason we've gone down the primary domain route.
Okay.
Whether it's said or whether it's just that's what I wasn't involved in. So whether or not someone's just done it that way because that's the way that they thought it had to be done.
Okay.
But yeah, splitting to secondary might be an option.
Okay, no problem at all.
And come back to you.
Yeah, just keep in touch, Karen, as always. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you ever so much.
No worries.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah, when we first started the recording options, the thing that struck me about the recording is actually that early doors, literally at the very beginning when it came in, people thought this is great. Mostly teachers were finding themselves recording an entire lesson. And actually, I think there's a revelation happened pretty quickly. I think within the first month or so, when people dawned on them, actually, if I just record the key bits, if the teacher's doing a demo, record that, but then while the student's working, you can stop and then record again. So you might have 3 or 4 small recordings rather than an hour's worth of recording, they're much more easy to manage, and they're all timestamped, so you know which one was when, so the teachers can then share them accordingly afterwards. And I remember noticing that change quite quickly, that it dawned on people that was an option. And I think that still stands as a really powerful tool, like you say, Karen, because it's not a full class you know, and in a blink you lose a significant number of your class again, and they're back at home. And the students, you know, younger people tend to be asymptomatic, but they are, you know, infectious, so they need to be at home, quite rightly. So having to deliver that hybrid model in the classroom and online at the same time gives you that, you know, that headache of how you manage that. And to be able to record things and give them a bit of leeway to access later is really, really powerful, I think.
Yeah, and I think we've got some schools, in fact my children's school, they've sent home year 9s for 2 days because they haven't got enough staff to teach. So the children are absolutely fine, but there's not enough staff. So yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and in a strange sense, that's more of a challenge, isn't it, than students? If you've got enough staff, then that's okay. But the minute you haven't got enough staff, you've got to send kids home because you're illegal, aren't you? In effect, you know, you've got to have a certain number of teachers in the building for the place to be safe. So yeah, it is. They do say it's weakening, don't they? They do say it's weakening. So when Omicron first came out, they said it's an indication that the whole thing is weakening. So let's hope that we don't get a new stronger variant, because there is a second variant of Omicron now, isn't there? I hear. So okay. So that was that. Any thoughts about people who don't have licenses that have be tempted you? Now you know there are some of those functions that you're going to see, not in the fundamentals, that you think, well, perhaps it's time to have a trial. Are you missing the recording, or are we all on some kind of license?
Sounds like they're all happy there, Paul.
They're all happy, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right. So I think I mean, the update sort of went well, and I know from previous discussions with Dave, Dave, you've got a slightly different approach for dealing with parent-teacher evenings. I know that some people still use Google Meet, and Brendan's sort of just dropped in that he uses or they use sort of Screencastify. And I think the nice thing is there's just such a wide array of solutions, but they all sort of deal with the challenge of either recording or having sort of different groups of people in, all in different ways. So I'm sure everybody would agree that rather than just having a single solution that you try and sort of squeeze all the different requirements into, it's probably better to have a portfolio of recording options, of which sort of this is just one. But throw it out there and just ask, you know, in your school or college or university, how does the process of recording, Brendan, you mentioned Screencastify, Google Meet is one. Any other recording sort of solutions that people are using? Be interested to know. Just pop it in the chat if you have, or jump on the call and share these things. Loom. Okay, Karen, do you want to, or Dave, I'll let you in.
Yeah, so I was just going to say about how we use. I mean, we do use Loom quite a lot for recording. So it's a tool that has some challenges, but it's very, very simple, built into Chrome. What we found though is that because we have the recording functionality within Google Meet, if teachers are delivering lessons across Google Meet anyway, they're really loving the fact that they can just hit record at the beginning of it, and then that's building in a revision resource for them. Some teachers we've got that are just recording the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes of their lessons to use for starters and plenaries, which again builds in those revision resources, as well as a kind of a bank of resources for students to access if they are isolating, because quite often it's not always feasible for teachers to be setting differentiated streams of work for those that are isolating and those that are present in the class. If you've only got one or two isolating, my daughter's in that situation at the moment. She's accessing a separate Google Classroom or a separate area of the website to follow work that's set just for those isolators. So it gives us the ability to really differentiate and to work in different ways. The other thing that we're finding it being used for quite a lot is for our early careers framework training sessions. So essentially they're still lessons. They're being delivered by the experts within the organizations, but are being consumed by other teachers. But it's really liberating for those that the resources can be created in advance and then consumed at a time that suits the early careers framework teachers, particularly for those with young children. It's really good for them not to have to stay late till 6 o'clock on an evening, which is what they were doing beforehand. So there's different ways around solving these problems. Loom is a really valuable one. Screencastify is valuable, but what we're seeing is that because people have become very familiar with Google Meet now, they're starting to use that as the recording tool of choice because we have the license for it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great, and thanks for sharing that, Dave. So Karen asked an interesting question. Is there a list anywhere or a forum sharing a list of apps, extensions, add-ons that are recommended blacklist? So Karen, is this you actually want to know the ones that should be blacklisted rather than the ones that you should be using?
Yeah, it's around the blacklisting. So, I mean, the example I put on there, there are, as you know, thousands and thousands of different extensions.
Yeah.
And for example, there's a VPN extension that students could, if you haven't got the settings turned off, be able to go and add that extension and basically bypass any filtering systems you've got. Yeah.
And I guess that was going to be my question for the more sort of technically sort of expert people on the call, that because through the Google admin panels you can literally sort of restrict any applications, extensions, add-ons that the staff or the students can sort of get access to when they're on the school or college networks. Then is, you know, if you can control everything, do you actually need a blacklist?
Yeah, well, I think the way that we've got it set up, so we've restricted it for students, so obviously they can't go and, you know, bypass filtering system and go on Facebook or whatever else. There might be other things where we want to allow the teachers the flexibility to be able to, you know, try out a new app and see how it works, and then say, yeah, this is a great one, actually allow it for everybody, or send it, pin it, etc., install for everybody. So want to have that flexibility, but at the same time, if there is a blacklist somewhere of, you know, these are suggested ones, so here's 12 VPN ones that have been created that are good to turn off for education, so that we can then make sure that staff members don't go and bypass filtering systems in the same way that a student might to go and access whatever it might be.
No, I mean, that's a really good question. And Dave, with your association of network managers in education hat sort of on, is this something that the association have created? I know the whitelist bit, but do they sort of have a sort of ongoing list of things? You know, somebody might ask you to put this application on, but don't do it because it comes from deepest Russia. Sorry to anybody from Russia, you know, or wherever, and it's got lots of nasty bits and pieces inside it.
If we're talking purely about Google, then no, that's not something that we maintain. If you signed up to the ANME, then you have access to the portal and the forums, which whenever somebody finds anything like that, they do tend to post about, and you can look at adding that. But ultimately, that tends to be blocked through filtering solutions rather than through your Google domain. So the Google domain, we control add-ons and extensions only, and as I've just said in the message, we take the whitelist route rather than the blacklist. So we block everything for students other than approved extensions. We are a lot more open with staff because we like to give them the opportunity to find innovative tools that they can use for teaching and learning. And if they find something that is that they believe is going to be beneficial, then they can submit a request for that to be whitelisted for the students. It also then, by working that way, allows us to look into things like data protection impact assessments. Because we have GDPR responsibilities as well, rather than just allowing everything. We can build in the DPIA into our approval process there. So no, we don't have things. We don't have a list of blacklisted sites. We go down everything is blacklisted other than those that we've approved approach, because otherwise you're always fighting a moving target.
Yeah.
Karen?
Sorry, I was just going to ask a couple of questions around that, Dave. So where you've put on there that you regularly audit the staff extension use, what's regular?
It's periodic. We have reports within the Google admin panel that we run, and I think that's set. It's done by yes, yeah. This is one of the benefits of the added security options that you have through the Education Plus website, and it's run by my two IT service managers at the high schools, and I think they run it on a monthly basis to check staff use. I don't think they do it more often than that, and then anything that they identify as being questionable, they approach the staff directly for, just to check what are you using it for. It kind of leads into another thing that we're juggling with at the moment, which is the use of our Google accounts for third-party access. And we're looking at because again we've got the option to look at the audit logs as to where that's being used. Those token requests are being used, so we can actually see, well, what are our school accounts being used to sign into. One of the obvious ones that jumped out, things like Roblox. Should we be supporting our students to use a school approved account to sign into an application that isn't of educational benefit and does open them up to communication from non-approved sources, third parties? So we're tightening up on that a little bit as well, Karen.
And is that this might be a question for somebody else, but you might is that view available in non-Education Plus, or is it can you only get that information in Education Plus?
It's a difficult question for me to answer because I've only looked at it from my Education Plus domain. I'm sure that will, if we look at the comparison list, it will tell you what you get for the extra securities, won't it? I can't remember off the top of my head. Chris is your man for that. I always like to put Chris on the spot.
Yeah, just ask me that again, Karen. Sorry, I was on a phone call. I would never ignore you, Karen. I was just on a call. So sorry. Just what was the question there?
It's about
where a child is logged into a secondary to somebody else. So like, I don't know, they've used their school account to log into Xbox or into Roblox.
Yeah.
You can see that information in Education Plus in the audit. Can you see it in non-Education Plus?
Okay.
I need to check that. I've posted. Sorry to cut across you, Chris. I've posted the comparison website for the 4 different licenses, the fundamentals and the 3 paid licenses. So you've got that. I'm just having a quick look through.
Yeah, and what
it doesn't only says audit reports to track user activity. It doesn't give me more detail about that.
And while he looks through it, Karen, normally the education standard one that Chris mentioned, that was normally sort of targeted at Google administrators to give them the security dashboard sort of features where they didn't need all the recordings and all the other sort of assignment stuff. So it's either going to be in the standard version, which is a paid version, not fundamentals, or in the education sort of plus sort of version. But we'll let the guys check it out.
And Chris, just very quick question: what's the cost for the education standard?
Standard is £2 per student per license. The option with standard is that you can then add teaching and learning licenses on top of that. So
So we'd have to pay that for all the students. That's not done by.
You would, yeah. With your current setup, then yes, that would be the case. So it's obviously cheaper than going down the education plus route by £1.20 per student. But yeah, again, down to your costs there, Karen. You'd have to just double check on that. So £2, and you can add teaching and learning licenses on top for the people who want the extra teaching tools as well.
Okay. And then Dave, do you mind if I ask you another question? So you talked about that you do the DPIAs, and obviously that's the kind of personal data checks.
Yeah.
Do you, when you're checking, going through and checking the extensions, are you also doing kind of a security check of the information that it's sharing? Because the security check is almost separate from a DPIA, because that's really more the personal data part.
It is. I mean, it's difficult and it's almost subjective in some ways. I think that what we need is an equivalent of that DPIA process for the security approach. The DPIA is relatively simple because it's a matter of looking at who we're sharing data with and what their what their data protection policies are, and making sure that we're logging those. The security, it's almost a matter of gut feeling, to be honest with you, Karen. When you're looking at who's developed it, we do a bit of background checking in terms of what the company is, whether they've got other applications that they've developed. If it's,
so what stage are you doing that? Are you doing that as kind of almost as part of the DPIA, or is that a separate team and somebody else is doing that before they press the button?
No, we do it only for apps that we get whitelist requests for. Only for extensions that we get whitelist requests for, which are relatively few and far between, if I'm honest, which is why it's manageable by myself and my team. Otherwise, I'd be handing off all the GDPR aspects of it to our DPOs. Yeah,
we have the same. It's almost two different teams.
Yeah, like I say, at the moment it's a small job, so I don't mind doing it myself because I've had the training. I'm reasonably well enlightened on why we need DPIAs and the process for it. And if I'm honest, I'm probably better informed than some of our DPOs are on that.
Okay.
So Karen, I've just put a link into the Chromebook App Hub, which is an official Google site, which lists the ones that they think are the better ones. So whilst it doesn't give you the blacklist and doesn't actually answer some of the other questions you've raised, it actually kind of flags those that they think are the better ones to consider. And it does update, not a huge amount particularly, but it does update every so often. So you might well find that whitelisting the ones, and it might be that you're using something that you're currently using, that there's an alternative which is in this list, and that might give you a bit of peace of mind. I mean, I think all the usual checks you would need still to do, wouldn't you? Of course you would. You've got to do your due process and things, but it just points you in the right direction. And there are a number of filters, so you can filter by age appropriateness and things. So it kind of gives you a bit of way to find things that might well be, suitable for a whitelist.
Thank you.
And I've not quite hit the nail on the head with the response for you there, Karen, but I can only tell you the way that it works for us, and I know no two organisations are working exactly the same way. So I can only tell you the way that we work, and it might not fully align with the response that you were hoping for there.
No, that's fine. It's just I think we're we're an academy of 45 schools, primary and secondary, across the southeast, and we've got there's the kind of the IT team is kind of something that's growing. So I think there was like 2 people that kind of did all the management of the whole of Google, did all the setup. They've now, one of them's completely left, the other one is sort of not really doing the Google stuff anymore. So there's now 2 of us plus one other part-time that's sort of learning on the job, if you like. So it's just to kind of make sure that we're getting best practice from as many people as possible, really, to then say, well, there's another trust or somebody else, some of the other schools are doing it this way. So, for want of not, does that fit what we want to do? Should we do the same, do something different, whatever? But yeah, just kind of, I think for some of these things, it's a case of, I don't know, we've never done it before. How does, what, like the whole, whether we've got a primary domain or secondary domain, don't know. Is that the wide? And I think the difficulty is for me sometimes, I don't, because I wasn't involved right at the beginning when all the setup was done, I don't know if there's a reason for that. So, but yeah, sometimes it's just, taking the information away and going to ask the questions, really.
No, and Karen, it's a great place to come and ask those types of questions, because in addition to the C Learning team, and I know James Leverage is on the call, and James set up multiple Google instances in a trust that he was the IT manager for. There are, over time, these reasons change. So I'm sure that if I went back 10 years ago, Google probably said, yeah, just create a single domain and stick everybody in there and it'll all be fine. And now I'm sure that there are sort of evolutions of those best practices. And as Dave was saying, have your sort of trust domain. And I always remember, was it one of the ones up in the Northwest, might have been Blackpool Local Education Authority, where the actual top level domain, I don't know, was something like seaside.co.uk. But of course, then none of the schools were, Lytham St Anne's or St Anne's at Seaside. They were always St Anne's at, blackpool.sch. whatever it was. So having different approaches sort of moves with the times, and also having the granularity to be able to apply different sorts of parts of the solution to different age groups, school types within the trust. I think obviously that makes more sense, because what's relevant for a nursery school isn't relevant for a sixth form college. And probably lots of things in between. So yeah, keep on asking the questions.
Excellent, thanks for that. Any thoughts from anyone else? Brendan, Phil, any thoughts about any implications, or Jonas? I've just noticed you at the bottom there. Any implications for your schools or colleges from the updates that we've just done? I'm going to do something. We've got a couple of minutes just to very quickly do this. I'm going to quickly fly through the slide deck again. And if I tell you that of all the updates that happened in January, the one that I think has got the most interest, and I probably said it in the presentation, were the label ones. Have a think. Put in the chat, which do you think is the one that's going to have the biggest impact for you? I'm literally going to fly through them at breakneck speed. Wait, let's go back. This is not the, okay, so Google Classroom updates is still yet to come, so that's probably not going to be on your list necessarily. Live translations, 4 languages available currently on paid licenses. Google Meet hardware, it will only apply if you use it. Companion mode in Google Meet, as well as additional functionality with Meet hardware and Nest Hub Max. Cloudsearch APIs to track billable usage. Google Voice has got more physical devices you can put at the end of the phone line to take the calls. Directory sync becomes cloud-based. And then Google Drive labels, and that's it. So those are the updates that we've covered there. So mine would definitely be those labels. I think labels are fascinating. Yeah. So which one do you think would be the one that is going to have the biggest impact for you? Yeah, the companion thing, we tried it out the other week, Karen. It's really useful, actually. It puts you back in the Meet, and then your presentation's there. It's really neat. It doesn't rely on you having 2 devices, but
I think not having the squealing going on is going to be really beneficial.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't you love that feedback squeal?
No, not really. And Paul, if you're in a sort of giving a presentation, are you literally saying that from your phone you can almost use it like a clicker, going next slide, next slide, next slide, but being away from the main sort of computer and sort of overhead projector or screen. Is that the role of the companion one?
Yeah, it could be like that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
but it could be, or just another device. So
yeah,
I'm going to the companion site now on my phone.
Yeah, I just think that being a teacher in the middle of the classroom, just with your phone, on the obviously understanding that you can you're allowed to use your phone in the classroom, but and yeah, the translation that Dave says.
So there's me on my phone. I just turned the volume down on my phone. So in companion mode, so I can then present and run the slide deck from there, rather than, so I'm then in the thick of the mute while it's happening on another device.
With a bit of feedback, Paul.
Oh, is there? I've just turned it down on this one, so I'm not getting it. That's interesting.
Just getting a little bit in the background there.
All right, okay. It could
It's
be
almost like the echo though, rather than the squealing.
Yeah, yeah. You're not getting a feedback. You're getting an echo.
Yeah.
I can just hear it now. Yeah. Interesting. It didn't. I tried it on my Chromebook yesterday and didn't get any of that. And in the same setup, the Chromebook was literally next to me here on the desk. So maybe there's something about the settings on a phone. Because you asked about phone, I tried it. You see, so that's interesting. That maybe phones don't respond, but a Chromebook does. Maybe that's what happens. Because it was fine the other day when we tried it. Yeah, but the other one's live translation. Yeah, and I agree with you, Brendan. I think the labels have got a big training implication because you've got to get people up to speed with it. And I think once they're in a broad enough range of languages, for it to be much more effective. I mean, it's great for those who've got languages on the list, but if it's not on the list, then it's not so useful, is it? So that's good. Yeah, I think there's some really, really good ones coming up here. One of the updates that we mentioned before we go in the user updates yesterday, which is on the YouTube channel, do please subscribe, it's in the chat, was the update to the Gmail interface. So you're going to get the chat and Meet integration into that. So we don't know quite how it's going to work yet, but it just makes that workflow of flipping between them and that much more efficient. I don't know whether you use chat a lot, but we use chat enormously. A lot of our training contracts include a chat space. So I'm monitoring chats, really frequently throughout the day to make sure that those groups are still active and talking to each other. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's in the user updates from yesterday.
Yeah, and the point I was going to make, Paul, was thanks for putting up the update, the next update for the 1st of March. But people on the call, don't forget that Monday to Friday, 12 to 1, if you have questions or sort of things that you're not quite sure of, then just for 5 minutes, just drop into the virtual staff room sort of any time between 12 and 1, and we can always sort of help go through some things, just revisit any of these points. You don't have to wait until the 1st of March to come back and have a chat with us. So we're just here to help. Okay,
yeah.
Over to you.
Large or small, any subject, do please come in. And if we don't actually know it, there'll be someone on the team who will, and we'll get back to you.